So talking about the art of the opening line, there are a number of ways to open up something. Perhaps the most universally used opener is the weather. If you've already been in Canada for some time, you've probably heard how often people talk about the weather. And understandably, the weather can change quite a bit depending where you are in Canada. And it is the safest universal opener because everyone has an opinion about it, and it's not a controversial topic, so you're unlikely to unintentionally upset somebody by commenting on the weather. And it works with strangers. You could be outside waiting at a bus stop, being in an elevator, talking with your neighbors, talking with your colleagues. It's just a simple way to say, hey, great weather we're having, hey, or it's crazy weather we're having, hey, and then the person can comment on it as well. Oh yeah, I know, I wasn't ready for snow in June, for example. Something to be careful about, remembering that the commenting is supposed to be light. Avoid getting into perhaps some kind of using it to comment on climate change and how grim it is. It's unless the other person decides to deepen it a bit, stick with it as a light opener. Remember, that's the intention, is to establish commonality rather than getting into a deep, serious topic about something that can potentially dampen the mood. Another great way to open conversations, location-based openers, talking about the shared space that you're in. It works in waiting rooms, classes, conferences, networking events, waiting in line. Something like just, hey, it's always this busy here? Or, wow, if you're in line, maybe getting some food at an event, hey, have you tried the muffins? Something like that. Be careful, again, about making any negative judgments. Oh, this place is terrible, until you know how the other person feels. So you might just, hey, wait, this is pretty crazy. Like, you can have it a bit more neutral if it is maybe a really busy room. Oh, wow, hey, it's really busy here. But don't say, oh, this is terrible, how busy it is. Because again, that negativity could dampen the mood, might make the person hesitant to want to continue the conversation with you because you're coming across as maybe a negative person. Remember, you're using this to warm up, so you want to give a sense of that friendliness and the shared commonality of the space. Compliments can be a good way to start the conversations, but you have to be very careful with compliments, particularly with strangers. This might be something you might want to use more often, maybe with someone you at least know, as perhaps a colleague or something like that. So safe compliments are often talking about maybe an item of clothing, any accessories they might have, maybe if they've gotten a new haircut or something, some kind of work-related effort that they had. Hey, that was a great presentation you gave today, for example. But you have to be very careful about any comments that talk about the person's body shape, their age, their weight, or anything that could be considered even remotely sexualized, because that can be considered very personal. It can be interpreted as a type of harassment because you're giving unwanted compliments or statements about the person's appearance or body. But basically, things that are based on choice, like things that they choose, if they've bought like an accessory of some kind. Hey, I love your scarf. Or, oh, did you get a haircut? It looks great. Is a nice thing, because then it gives them a sense like you're complimenting them on their style, as opposed to something about their body or something like that, which they may not be able to change, and again could be considered somewhat sexualized. Things to be careful about when you're complimenting, and you may be aware of this yourself depending on if you've experienced it, complimenting someone on their language skills, particularly their English. Oh, wow, your English is so good. It's because that can come across as being sarcastic and a microaggression. And chances are, depending on where you are from and what your accent, you may have experienced that yourself. Just be careful not to accidentally do that to others. Again, so probably it's best to avoid complimenting someone on their English ability, just to avoid that potential of coming across as a microaggression. So talking about the safe territory of neutral observations. Yeah, again, just as we mentioned before about the weather or location-based openers, those are neutral observations because it's non-personal details, right? Again, it's an attempt to establish commonality without getting too personal. Talking about the length of a line, how the coffee is. Hey, it's a long line today, eh? And again, being careful of complaining in your opener or the first time that you open up, because in neutral or mildly amused tone, hey, it's a really long line today, it's supposed to say, oh, this line is terrible. I can't wait. I can't believe we have to wait this long. Just an amused, long line today, eh? It comes across as slightly bemused and sarcastic, but one is complaining about the situation, the other is establishing a commonality. Hey, here we are, we're in this together. Again, it's a good way to, again, just being neutral, talking about the situation, and again, keeping a light or neutral tone with it. Cultural differences and how Canadian openings might differ from your home country. Again, as I mentioned before, it's for the most part, especially early on in relationships, and especially with strangers, we don't really get into personal topics like family or deep opinions about topics early on. It starts with light impersonal topics like those neutral observations, weather, location-based situations, and Canadians generally tend to prefer indirect, low-key, not being too loud or intense in things. Could be read as pushy. And it's generally speaking, in places like Quebec, people might be a little more expressive, but they still expect that politeness. And yeah, getting into very deep topics early on is, I don't know, if a person asks how you're doing, so how are you doing today? The expectation is that you want to be light about it. I had one kind of bizarre situation where I was meeting a person, and this is more of an online, hey, rather than in person, but hey, how are you doing? And this person talked to me about how their family member had just died and shared pictures with me about remembering, oh, I'm terrible because this person that was close to me died, and I felt terrible. And that just floored me because it was way too intense. I didn't know the person very well, and that can put you off if you get into very deep topics in the beginning. So again, just keeping it light and impersonal is the way to go. If the relationship develops into something more, the deeper friendship, you can get into deeper topics later, but it's very rare for that to happen in the beginning. And if you force that, you're likely to turn people off.